But in the end, I wound up right back where I started. I could still pick winners, and I could still make money for all kinds of people back home. And why mess up a good thing?
You play to win the game.
That's a W. That's E1.
Pay him. Pay that man his money.
Welcome to the Plus Odds Pod. I'm your host, Trent Silva. And today we have a special episode for you where we're going to be going over the two divisions that were featured in the Super Bowl this past year, the NFC West and the AFC West. But first, I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce my co-host, Justin Albert Thomas. Justin, how you doing today, my man?
Yo. I'm doing well. Saturday morning for this episode we're recording, bright and early here on the West Coast. About to hop on a plane on my way to Myrtle Beach this weekend to see some family.
Myrtle. Dirty Myrtle, huh?
Dirty Myrtle.
How long you staying there?
I'll be there for 5 days, so I'll be back on Thursday.
Okay. You about to get in the water?
Of course, man. Gotta put my toes in the sand, probably a little drink in my hand, drink in my cup, sunglasses on, phone on do not disturb.
True vacation vibes. I love to hear it. Well, that sounds like fun, man. Tell the family I said hello.
Will do, brother.
Speaking of family, we got 8 different families to talk about today. All right, 8 different teams. Like I said, NFC West and the AFC West. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the odds first for each team, their win total, their division, their odds to win the division, and their odds to make the playoffs. If we have a bet that we like, we're going to say it at that time. Then we're going to go talk about last season, how they finished, where they finished at in the division, how they finished in some key statistics, and maybe just some major events that we might have forgotten happened last season. Like Deebo Samuel going out for 3 weeks and the Niners going 0-3 during that. That's all going to be discussed right here on the Plus Odds Pod.
Right here, right now.
After that, we're going to go through the adds and departures, key acquisitions, key free agency signings, some rookies. Then we're going to project forward, see how we see this team doing. And after that, we're just going to ask the question, did they get better? Did they get worse? Or did they stay the same? Up arrow, down arrow, or a flat arrow? Equal sign, yeah, approximately. So, last episode, we gave out 3 best bets. We intend on doing the same thing. There's going to be 1 over, 1 under, and 1 division winner. Justin, that sound good to you?
Sounds like a plan to me, brother.
All right, well, let's get after it. We're going to have our little around the horn timer going. It won't be right in the mic beeping, but we're going to spend about 8 minutes per team. And maybe less, maybe more, depending on how excited we are to talk about them. So let's kick it off in the NFC West with, the former division winner, the San Francisco 49ers. All right. Kyle Shanahan returns in his 8th year as the head coach. Their win total is set at 11.5. The over is plus 105. The under is minus 125. Their odds to make the playoffs, the yes is minus 525. The no is plus 350. And to win the division, they are minus 195. The overwhelming favorite to win this division. Last season, finished 12-5, first in the NFC West and first in the NFC. They lost in the Super Bowl, however, to the Kansas City Chiefs 22-25. If you're a listener of the show, you made a lot of money on that game with me. The Shanahan offense was humming, as usual, right? They finished first in every EPA and success rate stat, overall, passing, rushing, all of that. They were first. They were the best team when it comes to offensive production. They were top 10 in defensive DVOA. They were very, very good versus the pass at 6, but not so good versus the run at 26 in EPA and 24th in allowing successful runs. And like I mentioned at the top, last season, we realized how important Deebo is to making this thing go. They were 0-3 in the 2.5 games that he missed. If you remember, he started the Browns game but didn't finish. He had 0 catches, 0 yards, and he missed the following 2 games after that, which was their 3-game losing streak. Justin, what did you think about this team last year? And what is their goal this year, you'd say?
I mean, goal every year for every team should be, winning it all. This team specifically, has kind of dominated its division in recent years. So that's only a stepping stone to where they ultimately want to end up, hoisting that Lombardi trophy at the end of the season. Down the stretch, as you mentioned, Debo being injured, 3 games and pivotal moments, and them losing all 3, it was even more evident. That receiver show on Netflix talks about it, how they were going through the struggles. They couldn't get the offense rolling. And you could see the morale on the offense, or not even on the offense, but the sideline was, man, Debo's down. Like, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. Like, what's going to happen? Because he's so pivotal to how they play and how they act. I don't have a season-long bet for this team, but, I don't think they're far off of where they ended last year. So improvements should happen.
Yeah, well said. I tend to agree with everything you stated there. I do have a bet, though, and I apologize for not mentioning it when I went over the win total, but I'm going to be going under 11.5 wins on the San Francisco 49ers. I think that I'll expand on that the more we talk about the team, especially projecting forward. But this team finished 12-5 last year. They were about as healthy as you could be, with Debo only missing 3 games. And, yeah, they were held to 19 points in regulation during the Super Bowl. Right, that's the last time we saw them. You wonder if other teams may deploy a similar scheme as Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, did in that game. Right, it's very possible that once you put, what the NFL is, it's a copycat league. Once you put it on film, other teams start to pick up on it and execute that. But on to the next section, the offseason moves. Justin, I'm gonna let you head that one.
Yeah, so like I said before, this team was already stacked with talent all across the board, whether it was the O-line, the wide receiver group, the defense. They were through and through, all pro, all NFL team. They bring in Josh Dobbs to back up Purdy, Leonard Floyd to help out on the defense, as well as Devondre Campbell, Malik Collins on the defensive side of the ball. And actually big signing, I think, is the Rocky Sin cornerback signing for them, because that just only adds depth to the defensive back room over there, to an already stacked defense. What do you say? He's not there?
No, I was just gonna say he's an old man now, isn't he? No, I'm kidding. He's just been getting bounced around the league. He's only 20.
Yeah, I was about to say I didn't think he was that old, but
yeah,
my co-host has a thing against NFL players that are over a certain age. So, yeah, he's old in NFL terms.
I'm an age racist. I'm an ageist.
Right. And I think the biggest offseason, I guess, addition or departure hasn't happened yet. And we don't know if it is going to happen. And it's kind of the most annoying talk of the town in the Ayuk situation. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think anything's wrong with their offense and the pieces that they plan on plugging in. It's just who's going to be there. That's what we really want to know.
I mean, I think we know who's going to be there, right? They signed McCaffrey to an extension. They brought in Josh Dobbs, which was a pretty good move considering what we saw from him last year.
Right.
The NASA guy. But yeah, and they also added to the offensive line. They signed Chris Hubbard, Colton McKivitz, 2 offensive tackles. They addressed some needs, right? But like you said, the Ayuk situation is definitely concerning. I've seen it enough with them, whether it was with Debo or with Nick Bosa last year. They just wait until the last minute and then they overpay guys. And that's probably what they're going to do again. And that's, if you got the funds for it, why not? Right. So that's more than likely what's going to happen. Now, when it comes to projecting this team forward, right, we know that Kyle Shanahan is going to have one of the best offenses in the NFL year in and year out, undoubtedly, right? Like I think that is well known to NFL, in the NFL world, as a consensus. Now, when you look at last year, like I said, most of the guys were healthy. Debo was the only one that wasn't healthy. And in the 3 games he missed, they went on 3. So asking this team to stay healthy in the most physical sport that there is, the most violent sport that there is asking of a lot, right? I could see some regression. You also don't have teams that make it back to the Super Bowl after losing the Super Bowl. You have that Super Bowl hangover. And I just saw George Kittle talking about we just have to win in that game now. We just have to win. It's when you're going through the season, waiting for week 21, you're not going through the season right. I don't think that the Bills have been trying to do it for the past 3 years. Just worried about we got to win in the AFC Championship versus Mahomes. That's what we got to do. But you got to take it 1 week at a time. And a lot of these other teams are going to be doing that. They don't have these high expectations. If they lose one game, it's not the end of the world, where it could be with San Fran. So I'm a little down on them this year. I have them going under 11.5 wins. I think the Super Bowl hangover affects them. And I think what Steve Spagnuolo put on tape can also affect them throughout the season.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with your synopsis there. And in general, it's hard to look ahead when you've been so good for so many years and not get ahead of yourselves and want to be at that end of season kind of scenario. So it is one game at a time. Other teams are taking it one game at a time, but from a Shanahan Super Bowl caliber, team, this shouldn't be an issue for them. It's like riding a bike. You got to get used to it. Once you got it down packed, and let's get the wheels rolling. So we'll see.
You tend to like them. It's okay, dude. They're a good team.
They're really good.
I'm a little contrarian with my pick, but I've seen it before, man. Teams get to the big game. Next season, you lose a couple, and it's like, fuck, man, is this happening again? And then you're not the same, right? But speaking of teams that have made it to the big game, let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks. It's been a while, but they have been to some very, very big games. And this year, I think they will be back in the playoffs and perhaps in the biggest of games. Their head coach, they fired Pete Carroll. They brought in Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator from the Ravens. Whole new staff for the most part, new offensive coordinator. And Mike brings in a DC too, even though he'll be calling plays. The odds for the Seahawks, their win total set at 7.5. Over is -135. The under is +115. To make the playoffs, the yes is +180. No is -220. And to win the division, they are +700. Well, those are my last two bets right there. Is the Seahawks over 7.5 and the Seahawks to win the division at +700. It's very correlated to my fade of the San Francisco 49ers. And let me tell you why, right? Last season, the Seahawks finished 9-8, okay? Third in the NFC West. They missed the playoffs. I don't see how this team got 2 games worse, how this team got 2 wins worse than last year for their win total to be at 7.5, right? Last year was the last season with Pete Carroll as the head coach, marking the end of a 14-year era, very long, stellar era from Pete Carroll, especially in the early years. The defense, though, they finished 30th in EPA and success rate. That led them to being 25th in points against, and perhaps Carroll's departure, right? I mean, when you're not putting up as the defensive mind, the leeway is short, right? Especially when you're getting up there in age. That I definitely think had a big reason for why Carroll had to go. But the offense was top 10, right? Geno looked good in the games he played in. He started 15 games, went 8-7, threw for a little more than 3,600 yards, 20 TDs, 9 interceptions, and he led a top 10 offense in passing EPA. Also was the 9th quarterback in success rate between Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, and Jalen Hurts. So Geno is performing at a very high level. Granted, the offensive line collapsed last year. These are little things we like to go over in case people forgot. Abe Lucas and Charles Cross missed some time. The 2 starting tackles, they had 10 different starting offensive line combinations. 10. That's a lot for any team. But yeah, that's about all I have for last season when it comes to the offensive, defensive side of the ball.
I mean, you said it very well put. I think that this team didn't lose enough for them to drop their win total by that much, and that the correlation between this play and the 49ers play, I like that logic here. I even actually added Seahawks over 7.5 wins on my own. So as you mentioned, Pete Carroll, first year out of the Seattle in 14 years, long time running, new OC, new defensive coordinator. So you would have to say this is a rebuilding year. They have faith in Geno Smith as we saw last season. So they're only surrounding him with better talent on both sides of the ball. To add on to that, I saw a report. You saw Metcalf smack that guy with his helmet.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, apparently it was like some Myles Garrett type. Like he like
How's Garrett behavior?
he clubbed his own teammate with the helmet. Apparently, like
Oh my God.
yeah, and we all know that Metcalf has like definitely a little bit of anger issues. It's been evident multiple times.
What makes you say that? Like him going around smacking people after the play's over?
That arguments on the sideline. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just messing. I see it all the time. I mean, he got a few flags for it last year for going and hitting guys after the play.
Right. It looked like dirty, cheap shots at that,
Yeah.
So character flaw, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. I'm interested to see how this team does. Just Pete Carroll, when you usher out longevity from a team, it's interesting to see how they'll bounce back. They're bringing in the pieces to do that. So I love that over 7.5 win total bet. I'm also taking it.
Oh yeah. You want to go over the offseason moves?
Yeah, so they really bolster up the defensive side of the ball, which I would have to say was their big flaw last season. They bring in, re-sign Leonard Williams on the defensive line, bring in Rayshon Jenkins, the safety, as well as 2 linebackers to replace Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks. So they bring in Jerome Baker from Miami and Tyrell Dodson from Buffalo. So, like I said, bolstering that defense as best as they can, because they believe that the pieces they have on offense could get them back to where they were last season, if not above that plateau. Even more correlation to that over 7.5 with these guys.
100%. And when you look at the departures, it's a new regime, right? A new head coach is taking over. Pete isn't making most of the decisions. He was very involved in the front office also. I know he's moved up to there now, but it's the Mike Mack show. They let Drew Lock walk in free agency. They also let Bobby Wagner go, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Devin Bush. Some big names, but names that are a little past their prime. Jordan Brooks also. Devin Bush. That's a very familiar name for you, I know. You have the jersey, right?
Chill, bro.
I'm sorry. That's not necessary. I can't be reminding you of wasting hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
But that's for the most part everyone that they lost. So yeah, I think that they, like you said with the additions, I think they bolstered up defense, which is what they needed, right? Don't forget what I said at the top. They finished 30th in EPA and success rate on defense.
Couldn't stop a nosebleed.
Not one. And what Nick Saban say? They ran through our ass like shit through a tin horn, and that's what everybody was doing to Seattle.
Steelers had part of that later down the stretch too.
So now we're projecting forward, right? We're looking. How do we think this team is going to do? I already told you how I think they're going to do, but now why? Right? They bring in Mike Macdonald to be head coach. Macdonald is a brilliant defensive mind. All right, he gave the NFC West offenses fits last year. You look at the San Francisco game versus the Ravens, Christmas night, I believe it was. Brock Purdy throws 3 interceptions, gets benched.
Man, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. They had that scheme down, and they won that game. Also against the Los Angeles Rams, a good team, a playoff team. Went to the wire with them, won. All right, they weren't able to stop them as easy as they were San Fran or Seattle last year, but still got dubs. Mike Macdonald ran through that division last year, 3-0 or 4-0. I apologize. Didn't even count the Cardinals. He makes defenders' jobs easier, right? That's his thing. He has less words. You can run the same pressure from different formations and personnels. It's not like, hey, we can only run fire zone when we are in base personnel. No, it's like, we'll run fire zone. We're in nickel. We're just going to have the nickelback do what our edge would usually do, right? There's a lot that goes into that. I'm not going to get into it right now. More throughout the season we will. But another thing I know about Mike Macdonald is he can get the most out of his players. You look at 31-year-old Jadeveon Clowney last year. I was talking about this at the game last night. Tied his career high in sacks under Mike Mack. And they have good pieces and players, even though the defense finished awful versus the run in the past, right? They have Witherspoon. They have Reek Wolin, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, the rookie that they brought in. Those are players that aren't just valuable versus the pass, but also versus the run. So I feel like you're giving Mike McDonald's these pieces. He can make something happen with them. If you can get 31-year-old Jadeveon Clowney 9.5 sacks, brother, his career high, I think Byron Murphy is going to be just fine. And Leonard Williams also. You look at the offensive side of the ball, I'll try to be swift. They bring in Ryan Grubb, who I have a lot on, the Washington Huskies offensive coordinator. He was the coach of the Heisman runner-up, Michael Penix. He was his play caller, and he came one game short of a national title. They competed versus Michigan in the championship. So this was a very sought-out offensive mind coming from the college space. He also worked with Kalen DeBoer, the man entrusted to replace Nick Saban at the college powerhouse University of Alabama. He led one of the college football's highest scoring teams over the past 2 seasons also. His scheme is a lot of fib, is what they call it, right? Formations into the boundary. We'll have a little football talk. And all fib is 3 receivers on the boundary side, 1 on the field side, right? So imagine you're on the left hash. You have 3 receivers to your left, 1 receiver to the right, to the field side. And there's a lot of stacks to make life easier on those receivers that are on the boundary side. And it helps create separation versus man coverage, right? If I have 3 receivers lined up in a stack, you can't press that. You know what I mean? You got to back off. And it's also more condensed formations, right? A lot of bunches. They run a lot of motion. And all those words that I just said checks the boxes on what you need to do to run a successful offense in the NFL, right? Look at Miami. Look at the Rams. Look at San Francisco. All these Shanahan guys, it's a lot of condensed formations and a lot of motions. That is how you make life easier on your players and on your offense in general. With all that being said, I like Jackson Smith and Jigba a lot in that bunch. A lot. Don't worry about distribution. Not Kalen DeBoer. Ryan Grubb has shown an ability to highlight more than 1 receiver and do it very often. So I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba will eat while DK Metcalf goes off and Tyler Lockett, even though he's getting a little older in age, I think they can all succeed while JSN sees a good majority of the target share. Kenneth Walker, too. Grubb runs the ball in the red zone. His run rate goes up exponentially. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers, but they go up exponentially when he gets inside the 20 and inside the 10. So I think Kenneth Walker could be like our who's the guy everybody was hating in Detroit last year, Justin? That was
hating David Montgomery?
Montgomery. Everyone was hating that Montgomery was the goal line merchant. That's how I see Kenneth Walker being. And barring 10 different starting offensive line combinations like last year, I see Grubb running an elite offense in Seattle behind Geno Smith. He's spoken very highly of Geno during camp. And don't forget, he's brought in here. This doesn't have to be his guy. Like you saw Sean Payton come in and be like, Russ, I don't like that he has his trainer. I don't like this. Yeah, he's okay. He didn't speak highly of him, right? And then you saw what happened the next year. He's gone. In Seattle, it's very different. They are complimenting each other. And it's not just, oh, yeah, he's Geno. He's good. No, it's like, damn, we got a guy. And they're noticing that. So I don't see how this team got 2 wins worse after finishing 9-7. Win total set at 7.5. Over 7.5 wins. Book it. You got anything? Sorry, I know it took a while.
No, I'm pretty good on the Seahawks. I'm in agreement. Like I said before, I'm taking the win total over 7.5. I mean, Geno, they counted him out. He didn't count himself out. He's been on a roll ever since that. So, like I said, surround him by talent, new head coaching, new offense coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new regime in Seattle.
I take it you'd say they got better.
Yeah, they're definitely a plus on the plus minus segment.
Yeah, arrow facing up for sure. They brought in one of the best defensive minds in the game to shore up this defense. Also brought in talent, Pro Bowl quarterback the last 2 seasons, and he gets a new offensive coordinator that he's fond of. That's all up arrows from me. All right, on to the next team in this division, the Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay's going into his 7th season as the head coach. He's got 2 new coordinators with him because they were both poached to go to Atlanta. He lost his offensive coordinator along with his defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. And now he brings in Mike LaFleur and Chris Shula. The Rams' odds to make the playoffs, the yes is plus 100, the no is minus 120. Their win total is set at 8.5. Over is minus 155. A lot of juice, damn near 8.9 on the win total. Under is plus 125. And to win the division, they are plus 330. Justin, you want to take it over with how they did last season? How you saw it they did?
I mean, they finished 10-7 in second place in this division. I mean, they have to be behind the 49ers, who had a 12-5 year last year. Without the nagging injuries that the Rams faced down the stretch last year, it just seemed like they kept being hurt here and there. Couldn't find stability amongst the starting offense between Stafford, Kyron Williams getting hurt later down the stretch. Puka missed a few games here and there. Kupp ends up being hurt for, I think, like 8 or 9 games of last season. Doesn't come back until halfway through. But Puka definitely, took the lion's share of that passing targets while he was out. So the offense is still healthy, thriving, moving forward with Sean McVay, and Stafford is still, Matthew Stafford. So last season may be hard for them to top. We'll see. Seattle is going to be barking back this year as well. This division is going to be really good. But only besides the last team that we're going to discuss in it. Besides,
and I even think they're going to be pesky and going to surprise some people. So I'm 100% with you that this division is going to be really good. For those that don't remember, last year this team's win total was projected at 6.5. Everybody thought, oh, they're going to be bad. They had just drafted pretty high, if I'm not mistaken. Or they hadn't finished too well. They hadn't finished too well. Now he's a 5th round pick, but the win total was 6.5. These guys finished with 10 wins. The McVay can do that. He can exceed expectations. A large part was due to him. It was due to Sean McVay and the very productive offense that they had. They were top 10 in EPA and success rate, and in part to a largely successful ground attack that finished top 10 in rushing EPA and success rate. Speaking of Kyron Williams, they did this by becoming a duo-heavy team, very downhill, run right at you. They ran duo 20 times more than the next closest team. And a lot of that was in 11 personnel, right? Because they have this guy named Puka Nacua who really came onto the scene. He broke the receiving record of 1,486 yards. And he also is a dog and will block like a tight end. And they'll use him as that. They pull him in inside zone splits like he is a tight end. And bro makes the blocks more than likely. More times than not, I should say. So that has bolstered this offense. The defense was good on a down-to-down basis at not allowing many plays to be successful. They were 11th in success rate, but they were susceptible to chunk plays, right? 20th in EPA. Majority of those through the air, which led them to be 19th in points against. So that was really their downfall. They didn't have a lot of bodies on defense. And, well, I'll let you take over the offseason moves because they lost another important body this year.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just overall losses on the offensive side of the ball, actually, I'm forgetting the biggest loss. I start with the additions more than anything else. Let's talk about the running back room that they added to. Kyron Williams, as Trent mentioned, was balling out of control last season. They add Blake Corum to that backfield to have a two-headed monster in LA. The run game was working very efficiently down the stretch, opens up the play action, and Stafford's a merchant for that deep ball to Cooper Kupp or Nacua, whichever way it goes. On the defensive side of the ball, they draft Jared Verse out of Florida State. So, you don't really got to say much about him. He's going to be on man time this season. So throughout the rest of the draft, they focus on the defensive side of the ball because I feel like they're kind of stacked on the O right now. So were you saying someone from the offensive line that they lose as a big piece?
Big 99.
Oh, I'm forgetting about the biggest piece of them all, right?
Come on, bro.
Yeah, Aaron Donald retires. We're thinking departures and losses. I wasn't thinking retirement at the time. So we're all sad to see Aaron Donald retire, but new regime across a lot of teams in this division.
Yeah. I mean, let's pay a little respect to that guy. We can give him a minute of time. The most dominant defensive tackle of our generation. And I think I could say that with the utmost confidence. 8-time first team All Pro, just an absolute dog. Last time I had the opportunity to watch him was at M&T Bank this year against the Rams, that crazy game I was talking about. I watched 3 people take on the assignment of guarding Aaron Donald. I've never seen 3 offensive linemen take on the assignment of guarding one person in one singular play. I'm talking a triple team, guys, not a double, not a single. I'm talking a triple team. So that just goes to show you the amount of respect that other teams had for this man, even in the last year of his career. And his loss cannot be understated.
For sure.
But all right, when we're looking forward with this team, this is a team that we tend to think it's time for them to drink their medicine, right? We always say that. Whether it's no first-round picks after winning the Super Bowl, rookie wide receiver and Cup as viable pass catchers, when they had no running back besides some 5th-rounder named Kyron Williams, and now it's Aaron Donald leaving. But after all that, they had one mediocre season, and they have been competitive in all the rest because they always have a plan. That's what it comes down to, right? And this year, it's more of the same. The center leaves. They had a plan for that. They move Avila to center. Inside of the O-line are human people movers, dude. It's Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, and Kevin Dotson. And they ran the most duo by a long shot last year. Very downhill, in-your-face run. Teams going against them are going to hate their life afterwards. I mean, the front 4, I'd be happy. Just know if you're in their division, you're circling that game and making sure you're getting a nice ice bath after, because that's going to be a test. The QB situation is still stable as long as Stafford can give you 15 games a year. He finished 13th in EPA per play behind Jared Goff and CJ Stroud. And you mentioned Jared Verse. They drafted 2 defensive linemen, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, both from Florida State University. They bring over that chemistry. Stunts
Could be a problem.
100%. And if you know anything about playing defense, stunts, twist stunts, looping, that's not just you go that way, I go that way. There's some chemistry that goes into that, right? There's a
timing aspect. You got
timing, cohesiveness. If the guard does this, I do this. Those guys have done that already for years in college. And they wanted both of them. They got both of them. I'm not going to say they're going to be Aaron Donald, but they're going to be pretty damn good players. So
I'm in agreement, especially that defensive side of the ball. They got a lot to, I guess, make up for with Donald gone now. So I know they're trying every single thing that they can. I think the cohesiveness of bringing in a teammate from Florida State will help those guys out tremendously.
I agree. I think that you also have guys like Kobe Turner, who are very good players from Centerville, actually, right up the street. Yeah, he's a standout in its own right. So he's learned from Aaron Donald over the year. He's got another year of experience, and he's bringing in these young guys who tend to be his type of speed. Did they get better? Did they get worse? Or did they stay the same?
I think they got better.
You think so?
Yeah, because even though Aaron Donald retired, they bring in pieces to, bolster the defensive line and not have that much of a decline. But the offense stays, on top of everything. Wait, can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That was random. My monitor screen literally just went blank. Crazy. Good that it didn't cut off. Lost my train of thought there. I think they got better. Yeah. They surround their all-pro. Is he? Yeah, I guess he might go to the Hall of Fame. Matthew Stafford, Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame quarterback around with more talent, and he'll make a way. Him and Sean McVay got a plan, and like you said, that plan has been working.
It definitely has been working over the years. Him and Les Snead, they find a way to make it work. I'm going to take the cop out. I'm going to say they stayed the same. I can't say they got better when you're losing a player of Aaron Donald's caliber. Granted, like you said, they did make some moves. They drafted some guys, but I'm gonna take the flat arrow and say they stayed the same.
However, they go under 8.5 wins?
No, No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think that last season was I don't want to say the
Anomaly?
worst. No, not an anomaly. I think that it's an indication of how the future, or an indicator of how the future is going to go. That's what I think. I think that they're going to be, especially towards the end of the season, they really came on. And don't forget, they lost in the wild card by 1 point to the Lions, who are up 17 in the NFC Championship. So they can definitely compete with. Yeah. Hey, the spread hit, though. They were underdogs, +3. All right. Speaking of another team who were very familiar with the underdog title last year, the Arizona Cardinals. Their win total is set at 6.5. Over is -150. Under is +125. To make the playoffs, the Cardinals are +300. To not make the playoffs, they are -400. And to win this division, they are 13-1. Pretty good. If you like donating. No, I'm kidding. Last season, they finished 4-13, fourth in NFC West. People might not remember, but as Kyler recovered from his ACL, Josh Dobbs started the first 8 games, going a resounding 1-7. Then Clayton Tune came in for 1 game, and he lost. So he went 0-1. By that point, the team is 1-8. All right. They are 1-8, guys. It is so easy to roll over and say, fuck this season. I'm done with this when you're 1-8. Kyler comes back for those last 8 games. They go 3-5. He goes 3-5 in a new system off ACL injury. I don't want to say it's the most impressive thing, but it is impressive because that team didn't roll over. They didn't just quit. They had that boost. Gannon riled them up. And when you look at from week 10 from week 10 when Kyler came back to week 18, the Cardinals were 9th in EPA. They were a top 10 team with Kyler out there. Weeks 1 through 9, they were 29th. So shocker, the team was better with the starting quarterback. But that should give Cardinals fans hope, especially my boy D. Will, if he listens to this. Should give you a lot of hope in Drew Petzing and Kyler Murray, that offensive coordinator and QB marriage. Because it's only a 9-game sample size or 8-game sample size, but it shows you what can come with these two guys together. The defense was objectively bad, but I wouldn't say it was scheme rather than lack of talent due to the previous regime leaving this roster in a bad spot, right? I mean,
very bad spot. They got rid of so many pieces on the defense.
It's like they had 2 names that you know as a fan. It's like Budda Baker, Zaven Collins. That's all you know.
Simmons for a period of time.
Yeah, and Simmons too, right? And if you really want to talk about Gannon can't run a defense, look at Philly's defense once Gannon left and how they were getting torched. That was pretty much the same pieces over there in Philly last year. They did not play like the same team that was in the Super Bowl the year prior. So he is, I'd like to say, a pretty good defensive mind. Won't call him brilliant like I did Mike McDonald, but he's definitely up there. And like I said, they fought hard. They played hard till the end of the year. Would have been easy to roll over after being 1-8 with backups, but Jonathan Gannon definitely began building a culture out there. What you think of the Cardinals last year?
I mean, after a 4-13 record last year, I would think that more changes would happen, but I guess that was already the plan last year, that they had changes with Gannon. So we'll see, if it doesn't go to plan this year with Gannon, is Kyler really going to lead this team to the promised land? The injury definitely set him back. And like you said, they were top 10 team once he comes back. And they're surrounding him with talent, which leads me into the player moves and additions. I mean, they bring in Maserati Marv, huge name wide receiver, can't buy his jersey. That doesn't really make sense, but veteranship between him and Kyler, relying on, rookie wide receiver, get him a lot of targets. They also bring in Chris Moore as another wide receiver, and Sean Murphy Button from the Bucks on the defensive side of the ball. So they know where their flaws are. They're trying to attack both sides of the ball at the same time. And I just don't know if them attacking both sides is going to balance out to where they need it to be. I don't think they added enough per se to say that they've improved. Like we're going to have to really wait until that season goes.
I disagree with that. They didn't add enough to improve. I think they did add enough to improve. They didn't add enough to be ready to compete with the NFC juggernauts or anything like that. But I think this team is still a year or two away from being at that level. But they made additions to what they needed the most, right? If I talk about the defense in numbers, it was bad, right? The defense was not great at all throughout the year. I can pull them up. But that's the thing. When your defense isn't good, like I said, it's because of the bodies that they had. Now you're adding players onto a roster that was already depleted. Guys like Sean Murphy-Bunting might end up being their best cornerback.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
QB1 them here.
Yeah, and you have guys like Mac Wilson, Chris Barnes, Dustin Jones, the guys up front, the defensive tackles, the linebackers that aren't going to be spoken about very often, but these are guys, right? And this is what they needed. They needed DBs they could trust. They got Murphy-Bunting, got a second-round pick in Melton. They needed pass rushers. I just named some of them. They needed a run stopper. They got him in the draft and throughout free agency. So they addressed these needs. That's why I tend to think these additions definitely help. They might not put you to Niners level, but they help, right?
Gonna be fighting for their life in this division. So
yeah,
I think every other team in this division is better than them still.
I agree, but I don't think they're going to be an easy win at all.
Yeah, division games. Cardinals are always a tough out, especially with James Conner still playing at the rate he's playing. Like red zone merchant right there, touchdown merchant.
Give him a shout out.
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go, but I love to see Steelers players still doing well in the league. Bounce back, doing well, getting paid. Not a Le'Veon situation.
No, Connor's actually taking over, man. He doesn't get the respect that he deserves. But just to wrap it up with this team, projecting forward, like I said, Kyler and Petzing has already shown promise together. I mean, like I said, ninth. Well, in the weeks that they were together. Petzing had a very, very diverse run game. All right. He had the second best run game week 10 on. Second best, Jay. That's fucking impressive. Excuse my French. But they didn't call any run more than 20% of the time. So think about that. Outside zone, inside zone, power, counter, pin pull. None of that was called more than 20% of the time. That is hard to prepare for in the run game because they're running anything at any place in the field with any personnel out of any formation. As a defensive coordinator, that's hard to prepare for. How does McVay say? The illusion of complexity. That is all it's about. It is about putting 11 personnel out there and running a counter to get them in the bait or to get them in a nickel. You put out 11 personnel, or maybe to dime if your tight end's that good, and that makes it easy for you to run the ball, right, with lighter bodies in the field. So that's what the illusion of complexity is. McVay explains it way better than I could. He knows more football also than I'll ever forget, or he'll forget more football than I'll ever know. But when you look at one last thing on Kyler and them, Petzing lowered the shotgun rate 10% from the year prior. He made the offense less predictable, which is a good thing, right? A lot more under center for Kyler. Granted, we know he's a short quarterback, but he's getting better at it. And the one negative I have is they didn't have many stacks, no motions, or not much motion, and that hurts your receivers a little bit, right? We talked about how the Rams and the Seahawks, they use stacks and motions to make the receivers' lives a little bit easier. This team, it made the receivers' lives a little bit harder. So I think that they'll implement that more this year, especially with Marvin Harrison coming over. And I truly think Marvin's going to – I mean, he's a dog. I watch a lot of college football. He's going to be the guy that defense is key on, and I could see other guys like Greg Dortch thriving. Sorry, big Greg Dortch fan over here.
Yeah, Greg Dortch fried us last year. Steelers lost to the Cardinals last year in Pittsburgh. So that takes us to our next team.
All right, well, did they get better, worse, or stay the same?
I'm gonna just put them as the equal sign. I don't think they got tremendously better, but they got Maserati Marv. But we can't, claim him as to be better until we see him in the true week one NFL setting, balling, doing, playing 4 quarters, blocking downfield, etc. A lot of intangibles you got to show as well too. and maybe buy a jersey or two.
That would help. That would help people to get on his side if they could buy the jersey. You're so right. Well, that takes us into our next division and our next team, who sells a lot of jerseys, the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid's 12th season. The Chiefs win total is at 11.5. Over is -115, under is -105. To make the playoffs, the Chiefs are a resounding -600. $600 wins you 100. The no is +425. And for the Chiefs to win the division, they are -230. The steepest division favorite, if I'm not mistaken. Last season, I'll be swift with this one. They finished 11-6. They were first in the AFC West. And they won the Super Bowl versus the Niners. They won the game. They repeated back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Very impressive feat in its own right. Apparently, they're going for a three-peat. I don't know if you heard in the when they were accepting the trophy. I thought that was kind of crazy. But yeah, they finished 11th in EPA per play on offense. But the defense was really what was there for him, right? Steve Spagnuolo had one of his signature years. They were 6th in defensive EPA. They were not great at limiting explosive runs throughout the regular season. They were 28th in rush EPA, but they were good on a down-to-down basis. And when you look at their run game on offense, they were not great at producing successful runs on down-to-down basis, but they had some explosives. So definitely want to get right in the run game on both sides of the ball. When you have Patrick Mahomes, the passing game is kind of going to come naturally, I should say, as long as you don't have receivers dropping the ball. What'd you have for this team last season?
I mean, last season, not really much to add on to. They balled out. They had a bumpy start. They couldn't get it going down the stretch. You made a good point. They couldn't stop the run. That was evident in week 1 when they played the Lions and lost that game on Monday Night Football or
Thursday
Night Football, where Branch gets that pick 6 off of Mahomes in the second half and to basically the go-ahead touchdown at that time. But yeah, you keep Mahomes upright, keep him away from making the wrong decisions, because that did happen a few times last season where he would just throw the ball into like double coverage and everybody be like, bro, what's going on here? So yeah, I think it's only up from here. I'm eating the chalk. The odds for what the win total was -118. That's what I'm seeing.
You're seeing that? Where at? I'm seeing 11.5 -115 on. Well, let's looky here. 3 cents. Who cares, right? I see Chiefs. Yeah, I see 11.5 115 on DraftKings. That's your bet?
Yeah. I'm taking the Chiefs over 11.5 wins. There's besides, actually, I can't even say the Chargers probably made the most like monumental changes in this division besides the Chiefs just getting a super squad. Yeah. They bring in so many depth pieces as well as draft well with Xavier Worthy, as long as he gets his weight up, as we've seen in, training camp.
That was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like welcome to the league moment and very early, because bro probably went home and was like, I'm about to get roasted for this.
Dude, he looked like a rag doll out there. If you all aren't aware, there was a rep. If you type in Xavier Worthy, maybe practice in Twitter, you'll see it. But he is coming off the line of scrimmage. The cornerback jams him, pushes him into the linebacker. And because he was in the slot, pushes him all the way to linebacker. Linebacker sees him and just gives him the meanest shoulder and sends him flying. And the kid, he didn't run a route. Let's just say that. He didn't run a route on that rep. So,
I mean, the weight issue was evident when he was at Texas. I think we were talking about this 2 years ago or a year ago when Caleb Williams has his rise to fame, because I think Worthy's in that. He's like, you were actually calling him out a minute ago. So we knew about Xavier Worthy. We knew he was lightning fast, but bro's weight is an issue. He's so lightweight. It's going to take one clean hit for him to come across the middle, and it might be wraps. So
hammer lamps.
But moral of the story, with Andy Reid bringing back the old band, Matt Nagy will know how to play call these guys open. It's almost like they're just adding the fastest people they can find. kind of Tyreek Hill scenario, deep ball, throw it to X. You just run to X. Make it to this point on the field, the ball will be there. Just get there. That's basically what's going on right there. They get rid of Valdez-Scantling, though, in the offseason. That was a deep threat for them. I actually got them to the Super Bowl on that big play across the middle. I forgot who I'm talking to.
Just to talk about that play for 1 second, because I was at that game, right? And that ball was thrown to my side of the field. When that ball was in the air, it was probably about a second, maybe 1.5 seconds, but I've never felt something in my heart. So such a range of emotions in my soul, because I'm looking right here. I was about to quote the Kansas City Chiefs drop numbers. Chiefs finished the 2023 NFL season averaging 2.6 drops per game, good for the most in the NFL. And right under it, you have a tweet by Tanner Fifter, says Marquise Valdez MVS dropped a touchdown pass, and it was the one against the Eagles. So in my head, in that 1.5 seconds, I'm like, hey, that's Scantling. He's not about to catch it. There's no way he catches it. It could be overthrown. It could be underthrown. No, it was Patrick Mahomes. It was put right in the breadbasket, and MVS made the biggest catch of the season. That's all I had on
potential career. These guys go on and win a ring. MVS, third down. Yeah, we find out about him in Green Bay years ago, and we think, okay, this is another big talent for Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be legit deep threat over here. He gets paired up with Mahomes. We're like, we'll see how this works out. But now he's reviving his career. He just gets a big contract. And where did the MVS go?
Oh man, don't get me to lying. We're talking a lot about MVS.
Yeah, he was a big target for them down the stretch when
for sure.
Rashee Rice was, let's call it inconsistent. He would show up here and there.
Oh, I thought he was their most consistent.
When they could
Tony was their most inconsistent.
Oh well, Tony didn't even get on the field after he had all the arguments and shit. After he kept dropping the ball and then the interceptions and stuff,
he didn't even dress. Andy Reid said, "I don't even want you to accidentally get on the field."
That's crazy.
I thought that was crazy. That's what it says when you don't dress, right?
There's a few players, that they re-signed that are in their contract years that are like actually very big. So Rashee Rice is one of those people, which we now have Xavier Worthy behind him. And Hollywood Brown is also part of that wide receiving core now too. So those guys are, they're fighting for a spot at this point. Trent McDuffie's in his contract season as well too. Great defensive piece. Cornerback 1. Will he play for the Chiefs for the rest of his career? We'll find out. Pacheco also in the same situation, and probably the biggest name in this situation for the Chiefs at this point in time is Jawaan Taylor. Can he cut down the penalties? I'm just going to go and say he had to be number 1 in penalties from an offensive lineman last season. He was jumping off sides like 1 to 2 times a game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they get rid of Willie Gay. They lose Willie Gay to the Saints. Not even get rid of. They lose him to the Saints, and that's a huge piece in their middle linebacking core. So they bring back Tranquil, but they lose Willie Gay. We'll find out.
Yeah, Drew Tranquil is a very good piece. I'm actually looking at the penalty situation right now. I was trying to find something. I see July 25th, 2024, Yahoo Sports wrote an article titled Chiefs tackle Jawaan Taylor was a penalty magnet last season. Better days ahead, ? The right tackle topped the NFL in penalties and penalty yards in 2023 and has 20 flagged infractions for 140 yards, led the team by a wide margin.
See, I didn't even have to Google that to look at
ball, bro. Ball. There's no doubt.
God damn it. It's on too.
Well, this year there's a left tackle job battle, right? There's a fight to be the protector of Patrick Mahomes' blindside. Sua Matia. It's crazy I could say that, not MVS. And second-year tackle Wanya Morris are set to compete for the left tackle duties, said Kevin Patra, around the NFL guy. So that is something in itself. I think that anytime there's a battle going on for the quarterback's blind side, that should be monitored. I think that less drops is kind of inevitable with the better receivers. There's no way that they lead the league in drops again. That just isn't about to happen. or it's very unlikely that it happens. With Holly drop, anything's possible. But they have an easy schedule. They play their division and the NFC South. Very top heavy, though. Very top heavy schedule. I'll go over this. Hopefully, we're not going too long on the Chiefs because this is a bad team to go too long on. But the only reason I say that is because they're one of the better teams, and previewing them shouldn't take too long. But just to go through their first 7 games in their schedule, start off the season taking on the Ravens in Kansas City. First game of the year. Then they play the Bengals in week 2. They head on out to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Then they go to play the Chargers, Saints, Niners, Raiders. Those first 7 games are really 6. The Niners, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Falcons. Those aren't all gimmies. So there could definitely be a slow start. But after that, it's the NFC side. It's the Bucks. It's the Broncos, the Bills, the Panthers.
Steelers on Christmas Day.
The Raiders, the Chargers. Like they're easier teams, easier days to come. And yeah, Steelers on Christmas Day. Congrats.
Okay. I was about to say, clumping us together in the easy games? Whoa. All right.
No, I didn't say that. Because they play the Browns, Texans, and Steelers.
That's
and
a
Broncos
tough
in the
stretch.
season. Yeah, it sure is. And only one of those games are at home. So, AFC South. I don't want to misspeak.
Ooh.
Yeah, they play the NFC South along with the AFC North. That is who they play. Not the easiest schedule, but easier. And we got to monitor the Rashee Rice situation. 100%. Like, will he play? Will he be suspended? It's definitely something to keep an eye out on. And the cornerback room post-Snead, man. How often is McDuffie going to be inside versus outside? Trent McDuffie was in the slot on 303 coverage snaps. So do they put him back outside with Snead gone? That's for Steve Spagnuolo to find out. He is a very, very spectacular defensive line. So I see him figuring that one out. Justin, did they get better or did they get worse?
They got better.
They got better, huh?
Yeah, they got better. They didn't lose their, main key pieces on this team. They only surrounded their star Hall of Fame quarterback by more talent, which will only be more evident this season, which is why I'm taking that chalky line at over 11.5 wins. And might as well just go ahead and take the division. But 100 to win or 600 to win 100 is
no, that's to make the playoffs. It's minus 230 to win the division. I like what you did there, though.
Yeah, that's very chalky.
Yeah. I agree. I think they got better, especially in the receiver department. One cornerback loss isn't going to be the end of the world. I think Steve Spagnuolo will finish that out. So I will be in agreement and give them the up arrow. All right, on to our next team, who also might have the up arrow, depending on how you feel about Russell Wilson, the Denver Broncos. Their win total is set at 5.5. The over is plus 105. Under is minus 125. To make the playoffs, they are a overwhelming plus 700 to make it into the dance. The no is minus 1,100. To win the division, they are 18-1. So if anyone's going to burn Justin, they got to do it at 18-1 odds. Last season, they finished 8-9, third in the AFC West. This is the part that I really like. When you look back at teams and you see how they started and how they finished. The Broncos started 1-5. They finished the year 8-9. That shows fight right there in itself. All right. You started out 1-5, and down the stretch, you went 7-4. It's very easy for you've seen it with the Panthers. It's very easy to roll over, man. It's very easy. But these guys did not. Defense, they were the problem. I think everyone remembers that 70-point debacle in Miami. They started the season historically bad, right? They got some turnover luck to turn it around at the end, but weeks 1 through 6, they were 32nd in defensive EPA by a wide margin. Justin, check this one out. The difference between the Broncos at 32 and the Bears at 31, I did this math myself, is more than the difference between the 31st team and the 24th. So the gap between the second worst team and the worst was the same gap of the second worst team to the 24th. That's like borderline.
8 delta.
Pretty much, man. It was bad. It was bad.
8 delta comprised into 1 delta.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, with your Greek alphabets. Really appreciate it.
Sorry.
No, I'm messing with you.
That helped me understand, though.
No, for sure. Thank you. Glad I could do that. 5-game winning streak, though, from week 7 to week 12. Right after that, historically bad start on defense. They totaled a league best 16 takeaways in that stretch. That's the most by any team in a 5-game stretch since 2005. So when I talk about turnover luck, guys, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. They got the most turnovers by any team in a 5-game stretch since 05. You cannot expect that to happen again. You cannot. So they're going to have to get off to a better start on defense. But week 7 on, they finished in the top half in success rate and EPA on defense. Give them credit, right? Vance Joseph finally got a hold of things, got his troops in order, troops in line, and boom, that happens. When you look at the offense, one thing on it, they were conservative. It looked like Peyton didn't trust Russ. He wanted to put him in positions where he couldn't mess up. And I thought that was reflected in the statistics. They were 15th in success rate, league average, 20th in EPA. They weren't really messing up much, and they weren't getting many explosives because they weren't willing to mess up. Anything I missed on the Broncos last season?
Not really. You kind of, summed it up very well. Same crew as last season. Sean Payton's bringing back the band. I thought these guys would have made changes on the coaching side of the ball or, sideline of the ball. But obviously they don't think that's the issue. They thought it was Russ. The defense was very bad in the beginning couple games, but, turned that around. They did add a few key defensive players to that defense with Brandon Jones from Miami, Malcolm Roach, defensive tackle, Cody Bolton, another linebacker. So they attack all 3 levels of the defense in their rebuilding phase. While they did lose Russ in free agency, they also lose Jerry Jeudy on the offensive side of the ball. So I imagine that their plan is to rely on that, 2 tight end set. Javonte Williams is going to eat. He was a huge piece of this offense last season. I expect the same. So if I'm looking for player props or, what I'm thinking on, leaning on towards the season, Javonte Williams is probably one of my most bet on players throughout the league. So his rushing stat, rushing attempts, touchdown, week in, week out, he's going to be
receiving.
Oh, yeah. Rushing, receiving too.
I have one note in here that I feel like it's prevalent. Sean Payton offenses throw to running backs a lot. You remember Reggie Bush. You remember Alvin Kamara.
Remember Reggie.
Everybody remembers, get the ball in their hands, let them get loose. That helps you in fantasy, it helps you in betting, and it helps out the rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. That's all I got. Back to you.
Switch team like Bo Nix. That really much sums it up. I think this team, if I'm just going to jump ahead, moving forward, what I think about this team, plus minus wise overall, I'm giving these guys a negative. I think they go down. I don't think they have the quarterback situation figured out still to this point. I think Bo Nix is right now still registered at 2nd in the depth chart at quarterback. So that means Jarrett Stidham is listed as a starting quarterback. And does that instill faith amongst your wide receiver core? Jerry Jeudy was already complaining about it last year, and he had Russ as a quarterback, but that was just more beef between the quarterback and the head coach, or so we'll find out this season. So, yeah, I'm not sure they added enough for me to say that they improved, so I'm saying they went down.
Okay. It's a very valid opinion. I'm not told that they got better necessarily, but one thing I do know is Sean Payton really kept the handcuffs on Russ last year in order for him not to turn the ball over. Going into year 2 of a Sean Payton system, things should be better, right? In year 1, it's hard to iron out the details. Year 2, guys have more reps. The backs have done it consistently. You got some continued continuity on the offensive line. Things tend to run a little smoother in year 2. Now let's talk about Bo Nix real quick. Nix might be the most experienced college quarterback to ever enter the NFL. He was a 5-year starter between Auburn and Oregon. from 2019 to 2023. The 24-year-old set the NCAA record for most career starts by a quarterback and threw 1,900 passes, 1936 to be exact, in 61 games. Schefter reported that Peyton feels as strongly about Bo Nix as he did Mahomes in the 2017 draft. If you're feeling that strong about a guy, I don't think you're about to sit him. He's having Stidham start first preseason game, like you said. Nix is going to follow, but I think Peyton is very invested in this team doing, or in the quarterback doing well, because he walked in. Think about it like this. Sean Payton comes in as the coach, second year after Russ gets that back contract. He calls him out for his trainer, for all of this stuff, and then he puts the handcuffs on him. Then he sends him out. Oh, he benches him. Sorry, he benches him because of some contract stuff, and then they send him out. That says, hey, I didn't want this quarterback. Let me pick my guy and let me run this. Yeah. And then that's what he's doing. He called him, I think, his band of misfits or something like that. Band of stepchildren is what he called it. All of his quarterbacks, Wilson, Nix, and Stidham.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody who wants these guys to look good, it's Sean Payton, the guy who just said, hey, get rid of Russell Wilson, pay him $80 million in dead cap, have that on the books, and I'm going to win us 8 games with somebody else. I think he's going to see to it that Nix is a viable starter on his team. Maybe not in NFL, but in his offense for sure. So, yeah, to answer it, I think they got better. I think they got – do I mean that? I do mean that. I do mean it. I think they –
sounds like you got an Eagles on there, brother.
Yeah, but, I trust in Peyton a lot. And I feel like maybe I shouldn't. Maybe his one Super Bowl is reigning too large in all of our heads, but –
it's kind of just like they added just as much as they subtract. So in that result, they didn't change at all.
I like what you did there. It's a math problem, huh? It's like why Jason Tatum isn't getting playing time. It's all a math problem.
We did it.
All right. All right. Last 2 teams we got right here. The Las Vegas Raiders. They are 6.5. That's their win total. Over is -130. Under 6.5 is +110. For the Raiders to make the playoffs is +300. For them not to make the playoffs, it's -400. And to win the division, +900. You want to talk about what you saw from these guys last year, or should I take it over?
You go first.
Well, they finished 8-9. They were second in the AFC West. If you remember, they fired their head coach, Josh McDaniels, after a 3-5 start. They promoted Antonio Pierce, also known as AP, and he goes 5-4 down the stretch, along with a big win against Patrick Mahomes in a nationally televised game. The defense came on the scene, though, and they played for AP. They were second in EPA on defense from weeks 9 to 18. 16.3% of drives ended in a touchdown versus the Raiders in the second half of the season. That was second, only behind the Patriots in the amount of drives that ended in a touchdown. So there was Bill Belichick's defense and there was Antonio Pierce's defense. Now, disclaimer, they played some bad quarterbacks in the back half of the season. They played the Giants, which was either DeVito or Taylor. They played Nick Mullins. They played Easton Stick. They played Jarrett Stidham and Gardner Minshew. Those are some names, aren't they? The good quarterback was, of course, Patrick Mahomes. They went 1-1 versus him. So there is a disclaimer there, a caveat. However, the defense did. They played for AP. They came out and played for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Antonio Pierce error gain momentum down the stretch, as you mentioned. But in the offseason, we found out the little rumblings of if they really want to bring him back, what was the situation in Las Vegas. Turns out Antonio Pierce is in mounds of debt. So he's basically working for free, which has to be reigning evident amongst his mind, his coaching staff, or whatever. He brings in a new offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, who I didn't know, but as it turns out, he has a history from Pittsburgh. So this only means that this guy knows ball. Spent the
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh in the mic like that.
spent the last 2 seasons as the offensive coordinator in Chicago. So this may be make it or break it for him. They brought in position players on both sides of the ball, but ever since Waller left a few seasons ago, they have been trying to find a replacement for him and how that would look for the tight end perspective. And they fill that void with Brock Bowers in the first round. A few other notable names that they add onto their offense: Jalen Guyton, Michael Gallup, Alexander Madison. Now, those aren't, terrible players or anything. I'm not sure if that's enough to say, okay, we can build our team around this guy and he's going to be the main guy and he's going to lead us to the promised land. Because the further I looked and researched into this team, I was like, actually, who's at the helm? Who's throwing the ball? Because they got rid of Derek Carr last year. Turns out Gardner Minshew is a starting quarterback for this team. So we seen Minshew mania, how that ended in Indianapolis last season. So he's not bad. He could get the job done. Is he a starting quarterback? We'll find out.
For half the year last year, or for 3/4 of the season.
Yeah, but are you week 1? You're telling me these guys went through the draft and didn't see one quarterback that they were like, all right, maybe we bring him in late round, sit him through 1 year under, and he might be our guy next year. If I'm Antonio Pierce, I'm putting that in my clause in the offseason to say, let me bring in a guy in the background, work him up so that next year we could really, that's my year. That's my make it or break it year. I don't want to have that looming over my head this season, which this year I think he does have that looming over his head. The Raiders are fed up. They're like, we want to win. We want to win now. They're paying Christian Wilkins to bolster the defense. The offense has to follow suit. The coaching staff has to follow suit. I said my piece.
I think the coaching staff 100% has followed suit. And he's a question mark, right? Antonio Pierce. I mean, we got a 9-game sample size versus questionable quarterbacks. It's a definition of a question mark right there. And you mentioned the quarterback situation being unclear. I'll speak on it a little bit. Aiden O'Connell. Well, first, let's just look at the odds, right? In the most liquid market in the world, right after the stock market, probably. Aiden O'Connell's minus 130. And Gardner's plus 105 to win the starting job, to take the first snap in week 1. Aiden O'Connell is the favorite at minus 130 because, let me remind you, they went 5-4 down the stretch with Aiden O'Connell as a quarterback. The guy showed, hey, I can win y'all some games. I won't lose you games. You know what I mean? I think his ADOT was one of the lowest in the league, but he wasn't losing them games.
How do you think Devontae Adams feels about his 2 quarterbacks being plus money to start week 1?
Well, minus 130 for O'Connell and Minshew plus 105. Personally, I don't think he cares.
Even after watching a receiver?
It looked like he liked O'Connell. He liked O'Connell way more than he liked Jimmy last year. And let's talk about that, right? Okay, Aiden O'Connell had a good grasp of the offense last year that asked quarterbacks to do a lot, right? And that offense, it's protections, it's mic points, it's all of that. And he had a better grasp of it than the 8-year veteran Jimmy G. So I think he's definitely earned Adams' trust. And Gardner, it's like, hey, I've seen what he did in Indianapolis. I've seen he's a veteran coming in, not a second-year guy. I think he probably has a good amount of respect for him also. But Gardner's problem, he didn't access the middle of the field. For 15 out of 32 on throws to the middle of the field, 11 to 20 yards. That's less than 50% completion rate. That's no good. And Steichen realized that. He drew up stuff for him not to have to go over the middle of the field. But him not being able to access that area of the field can limit an offense. Well, Aiden's arm isn't some world beater, but it doesn't create limitations of what this offense can be. So I personally like the favorite to win the job, Aiden O'Connell. But like you said, the defensive front is spectacular. Max Crosby is a world beater. He's a fantastic player. Christian Wilkins, also another great player to put next to him, elite, powerful run stopper, and can also get to the quarterback on third down. Another great guy to put next to him. But when it comes to did this team get better, I'll say no. No, they did not get better. We're in
What about you?
agreement. Okay.
We're in agreement. Yeah. Like I said, I got all the way to the end of taking notes for this team, and I realized that their starting quarterback situation is pretty much in the same situation it was last year. So
Hmm.
I 6.5. Oof. 8 and 9 last year might have been their peak.
I know the head coach boost too.
Yeah. We'll find out. I was trying to actually look up tickets for games that I'm trying to go to this year. And for some reason, I mean, not even some reason, the Raiders tickets are insanely expensive. The Steelers come to Las Vegas the weekend of my birthday, and it's the most expensive ticket.
Well, it's because they know y'all will travel. Vegas always sells to the other team, at least from what I've heard of the people that live in Vegas and do podcasts out there. It's like the stadium's always half the other team. So if you're a big fan base that travels, like
Steelers
Packers,
fan base,
Steelers,
yeah,
they're gonna upcharge.
We're damn near, we own part of California if we keep it a stack. But
yeah, never heard of that at all. Not one day in my life.
We'll talk about it later. Next team.
All right, next team. Our last team, the Los Angeles Chargers. This is the team that has had the most turnover. A whole new coaching staff. Jim Harbaugh as the head coach, coming in from Michigan. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator, formerly in Baltimore for Lamar Jackson's first MVP season. And they bring in Jesse Minter, who is a defensive coordinator from Michigan. The odds, very surprising odds. Win total is at 8.5. Over is -155, under is +130. To make the playoffs, they're +110.
That's +110.
Yeah.
Even better.
No is -130. Personally, I lean the no right there. That's just me. Division winner, +320. And I'll let you take this one, Jay.
I mean, start with the coaching moves, As we all know, they made a huge revamp. A lot of guys got out. They bring in Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. The team morale and demeanor should change, right? This guy just won a national championship last year with Michigan. So he's locked in. And from what I've heard from his previous players, he's a team player. I forget the exact player who said it, but he's like, yeah, Harbaugh, when he came for my visit, he slept on the floor in my crib. Like,
I saw that video.
I was
the receiver.
Yeah. I wasn't Keon Coleman because he was on Florida State. So it was Nico Collins.
There
it is. Yeah.
Nice pull.
So this guy cares about his players. That's evident. He cares about his players, their background, their team. And as an NFL coach, you need that personable relationship. Mike Tomlin has shown that how many seasons? It's evident. Like, you need to have that type, come to me when you need to talk. Let's talk outside of football. Let's talk about your growth as a person, as a man. So I like the revamp for them. They lost a ton of pieces on the offensive side of the ball. Keenan Allen's gone. Mike Williams gone. Austin Eckler's gone. You know who remains? Herbert. His job is it not on the line?
No. He's the franchise quarterback. He just signed the fattest deal. He had an injury last year. And let's talk, we don't debate enough. You look at last year, they were 9th in offensive DVOA until the Herbert injury. Guess what they were after?
5th.
Yes, one number. Just throw it out there.
8th.
After Herbert went down.
Oh, after Herbert went down, they probably were dropped to like 32nd.
30th. You're pretty close. Yeah. And that guy, that's your guy. All right. Even with those pieces last year, he made the thing go. He made it so that they were top 10 in offensive DVOA. Once he leaves, ain't. So he's the guy. He's not going anywhere. I don't think his job's in question at all. They just paid the man one of the fattest contracts at the time that he signed it. So I think he's good.
They did. I mean, his deal is set in stone. He's got some years left over there. It's just, man, like, they can't break over the hump. It's like the offense could score. It's like offense is scoring hella points, but the defense can't stop nada.
And that's where this year's addition on the defensive side of the ball comes into play. Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator from Michigan, worked with Mike McDonald, worked with Jim Harbaugh. He has that very same Mike Mack outlook, run a lot of different You could run different plays from different formations and different personnel. It's just like, hey, we got one word or a set amount of coverages, and we can run them from anything. Sim pressures, all of that. That's the stuff that confuses defense or confuses offenses. That's the stuff that puts your defense in a place to succeed. And they don't have to remember, oh shit, if we're running fire zone in Cub, I have to go down and play the no, bro. It's like you're pretty much doing what you were doing, where you're replacing what the defensive back was doing, however it is, right? That guy, Minter, is going to bolster this defense. You got to remember, Staley was terrible. 2021 and 2022, they had the worst run D by success rate. Last year, it was 18th. They got a little better. But when you look at the defense as a whole, it was still bottom third in the league. I think anybody besides Staley is going to improve this defense. And that could be me just being a Staley hater, but
yeah, I mean, everyone should be a Staley hater the way those guys were giving up points last year. I regret even locking any ticket that had Chargers money line in it ever last season. They couldn't stop anything. And they lose Murray, the linebacker, who Trent is not a fan of, to be completely honest. Where does he end up? Is it not It's not Baltimore. He ends up
hell no. The Titans.
Yeah, that's we covered that last episode. So they're searching, but that defense, not Jamal Adams, Derwin James has a lot of free roam apparently this season. Move around how he used to at Florida State, in the box, tackle behind the line of scrimmage, play outside backer kind of safety scenario. And as Trent mentioned with Jesse Minter, they're mixing things up. So they're going to try to see if things are working out. 8.5 might be a little too steep for them in the win total column, though, for me. Way too many pieces left. And another point, if Quentin Johnson doesn't catch the ball this season, his mom may, in fact, be working next year. It's crazy. Like,
that was good.
Bro's route running is top tier. He could get open.
He's more of a straight line guy. But yeah, it's just the catching.
Are we seeing like the newest 2010s on, or no, 2020s on bust? I mean, Kenny Pickett's up there. He's got to be up there now.
I don't want to call him a bust.
On our first episode, we should do a little christening. I should burn my jersey.
Oh my God. we don't need to do that. Forest fires. Come on, Smokey the Bear doesn't like those. But back on him, I think they downgraded at almost every position, right? Like the offensive position room is definitely not in good shape. Wide receiver has Johnson, who we were just talking about, drops in straight line. Palmer, he's more of a possession guy. We'll see what we can get out of Lad McConkey. He was hurt in the SEC a little bit, but he's also a very good playmaker. The tight ends they're blocking tight ends. The running backs, the Ravens hand-me-downs, and J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. They also got Vidal too. It's showing you this team is going to want to be a run-at-you team. They're going to want to be a downhill, smash-mouth football team. But that could take some years to build, right? Like, he said what he wants to build, and it's not modern football. That's what Harbaugh said. That takes some time. It's not just going to happen overnight.
He's got the guy to work with.
They brought in what some consider the best tackle in the draft, Joe Alt. That's a staple of your offense right there, a centerpiece. And Greg Roman, last thing about Quentin Johnson, because I don't want to talk about him anymore. He said, we're going to use him in ways he hasn't been used before. That's what he said. He struggled versus press man. They want to get him in space. They didn't say that part. I said that part. But that's what it's got to be, man. I don't know if you should just be using him as a straight line guy, maybe across the middle, maybe some jet sweeps, some manufactured touches, because he's got speed. It's just got to get him the ball. Got to trust he catches it. Yeah, that's the big problem. So let's wrap this up. You think they got better, or you think they got worse?
I'm in agreement. They definitely got worse. They removed tons of skilled position players, and they replaced them with young talent. And they're, like he said, new generation of football, new regime, new talent. This might take a while for them to get it going. But, the offensive coordinator, one thing I'll hang my hat on, Greg Roman, obviously was very impressive in Baltimore. I'm not ready to count J.K. Dobbins out, bro. His story is crazy, all the injuries he's faced. But, bro, even after the injury last year, he He gave us 130.
Yeah.
He like consistently with injury or not, J.K. Dobbins is giving you 100 yards on the ground.
Mhm.
So his motor, his attitude with Harbaugh it'll be evident. And like you said, their plan is to run directly at you. So we'll find out what that offense is hitting for this season.
Hell yeah, brother. They trying to play some smash mouth football. That's all I know. I think when it comes to position, personnel-wise, they definitely got worse. No doubt. I mean, like I said, they downgraded almost every position. But when it comes to the minds, the coaches, because like I say all the time, coaches matter in football more than any other sport. They 100% got better. I am not anyone that knows me knows I'm not the biggest Greg Roman fan, but when him and Jim are partnered together, I mean, we saw it in San Fran their first year together. They made it to the playoffs. So they definitely have good chemistry. They were staying in a RV together. And Jesse Minter, you saw what Michigan's defense did. You've seen what Mike McDonald has done in the NFL. I think Minter follows in those footsteps. So they definitely got better in the minds that are in the building. But when it comes to the personnel, they got worse. So for that, I give them a thumbs even.
Equal sign.
Equal sign. All right. That's all we got today. That is it. I'll recap my bets real quick. Mine were all in the NFC West, really in the first two teams. Sorry about that. Over 7.5 wins for the Seattle Seahawks. That is at minus 135. Seahawks to win the division, plus 700. Give it to me, 7-1. What's the name of the show, Jay?
Plus odds.
Plus odds.
You know me. My eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. I heard my guys locking something over plus 200. Trent, is that you?
Yeah, it's me. I haven't been kidnapped.
Trent,
not by the Russians yet.
Deselect the bet if it isn't you.
Blink
Place
if you're
one
okay.
more leg if it isn't you. Is that more? If it's a 5-pick parlay, I know it's not Trent.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna be posting some of those. I'm gonna be taking some more parlays. But we're gonna be posting on TikTok, posting some of these plays that we have. We're gonna parlay some division winners. It's gonna be fun these next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Follow us on TikTok. And to wrap it up, my last bet was the under 11.5 for the Niners. Minus 125. Justin, what were yours?
So for my over bet, I'm taking the Chiefs on the chalky line at over 11.5 wins because it's Mahomes and he's got talent. Taking the Seahawks over 7.5 wins. You know, I like that synopsis that Trent gave, only more evident with the new coaching staff up there in Seattle. These guys are destined for change in trajectory next season. And then my last bet, I'm taking under 7.5 wins for the Cardinals because I'm betting against the state I live in. We'll find out.
You should go to a game this year.
I am. I'm actually going to – the plan is to go to the Skins when they're in town. I'm going to go see the Commanders when they're in town. The Steelers don't play the Cardinals this year, so I might go catch a random game whenever.
At State Farm Stadium? How far is that from you?
It's in Glendale. I think it's like a 30-minute drive for me. So
nice. What's your address? No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to air you out like that.
Oh, yeah. My address is.
All right. Well, have fun there. Enjoy the Myrtle Beach trip. And thank you all for listening. We're going to be going over the East next time. I know we have a lot of Commanders fans, a lot of Giants fans, Eagles, all y'all are very prevalent. We even have some Bills, Patriots fans. Shout out Guap and Tom. So next episode, we will be getting into that. Without further ado, I say goodbye and bid you a farewell. Talk soon.
Until next time.